Rain poured over the city as Ethan Parker stood outside the small apartment he had called home for the last 5 years. His clothes were soaked, but he barely noticed. In his trembling hands were the divorce papers his wife, Sophia, had just handed him. "I can't live like this anymore," she said without looking him in the eyes. "I deserve a better life." Ethan's voice cracked. "We've been together for 11 years. We've survived everything. We can survive this too." Sophia slowly shook her head. "No, Ethan, love doesn't pay the bills." Those words cut deeper than any knife ever could. Just a few months earlier, life had been different. Ethan owned a small furniture workshop. He wasn't rich, but he worked hard every single day. His dream was simple: to build a comfortable life for the woman he loved. Then disaster struck. A fire destroyed his workshop overnight. The insurance company refused to cover most of the damage because of a technical issue in the policy. Within weeks, Ethan lost his business, his savings, and almost every customer he had spent his earning. He started taking temporary jobs, construction work during the day, warehouse shifts at night, doing everything he could to keep food on the table. But while Ethan was fighting to save their future, Sophia had already begun looking for another one. She had met Daniel Carter, a wealthy real estate investor who drove luxury cars, wore expensive watches, and seemed capable of giving her everything Ethan no longer could. One evening she packed her bags. "I've made my decision." Ethan stared silently. "Is there someone else?" Sophia hesitated. "Yes," his heart shattered. "I never wanted to hurt you." "If that's true," Ethan whispered, "then why does it feel like you're destroying my entire world?" She couldn't answer. She walked out the door without turning back. The divorce was finalized. Just 3 months later, friends disappeared, neighbors whispered behind his back. Many believed Ethan had failed as a husband. Some even blamed him for losing everything. For months, depression consumed him. Every room reminded him of Sophia. Every memory became another wound. One night, while sitting alone in his empty apartment, Ethan found an old notebook. Inside was a sentence his late father had written years before. "Success isn't measured by how many times you win. It's measured by how many times you refuse to stay down." Ethan read those words again and again. Something changed inside him. The next morning, he sold the last valuable thing he owned, his father's vintage motorcycle. With that money, he rented a tiny garage on the edge of town. He bought second-hand woodworking tools. He started over. His first customer only ordered 1 coffee table. Ethan spent 3 full days making it absolutely perfect. The customer loved it, then recommended him to someone else. 1 customer became 5. 5 became 20. 20 became hundreds. Years passed. Ethan never became famous overnight. He simply refused to quit. Eventually, a luxury hotel chain noticed his handcrafted furniture. They offered him the biggest contract of his life. Within 2 years, Ethan had rebuilt everything he had lost. Then he built something even bigger. His company expanded across several states. Interior designers competed to work with him. Magazines featured his story. Television interviews followed. By the age of 42, Ethan Parker had become one of the country's most respected custom furniture entrepreneurs. But despite all his success, he never remarried. Not because he couldn't, because learning to trust someone again was harder than building a business from nothing. Every anniversary of his divorce, he quietly visited the small cemetery where his father rested. He would sit beside the grave and say the same words. "You were right, Dad. I just had to keep getting back up." 10 years after Sophia walked away, Ethan was invited to speak at a national business conference in Chicago. Hundreds of entrepreneurs filled the ballroom. His speech received a standing ovation. After the event, dozens of people waited to shake his hand. As security escorted him toward the exit, someone softly called his name. "Ethan." He froze. That voice, he hadn't heard it in a decade. slowly. He turned around, standing. Near the entrance was Sophia. She looked older, tired. The confidence she once carried had disappeared. Her expensive clothes had been replaced by simple ones, even from across the room. Ethan could see tears filling her eyes. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, Sophia whispered the words she had carried for 10 long years. "I'm so sorry." The conference hall had almost emptied. Business leaders, reporters, and guests walked past without realizing they were witnessing a reunion 10 years in the making. Ethan looked at Sophia for several long seconds. She looked nothing like the woman who had walked away from him. The expensive jewelry was gone. The designer handbag had been replaced with a worn leather purse. Even the confidence that had once filled her eyes had disappeared. Finally, Ethan spoke. "I never thought I'd see you again." Sophia lowered her head. "I wasn't sure you would even stop to listen." Ethan took a slow breath. "I have 5 minutes." She nodded. "I don't deserve more than that." They walked to a quiet corner of the hotel lobby. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Sophia finally broke the silence. "The life I chose wasn't real." Ethan remained calm. "Tell me." She swallowed hard. "When I left you, I believed money could solve everything. Daniel gave me luxury cars, vacations, expensive clothes, everything I thought I wanted." Her voice began to shake. "But I ignored the one thing you always gave me, respect." Ethan stayed silent. He controlled everything. My friends, my schedule, even the money he spent on me. Sophia wiped away a tear. "The gifts weren't love, they were chains." She explained how Daniel slowly became emotionally abusive. Every mistake was criticized. Every opinion was ignored. Every disagreement ended with threats. Then came the betrayal. Daniel had been seeing another woman for nearly 2 years. When Sophia confronted him, he laughed. "You left one man for money." He had told her, "Don't act surprised someone leaves you for something younger." A few months later, Daniel filed for divorce. Their prenuptial agreement left Sophia with almost nothing. The mansion, the luxury cars, the vacations, everything disappeared overnight. She moved into a small apartment and started working as a receptionist. For the first time in years, she had to rebuild her life from the ground up. "I finally understood what you went through," she whispered. "I understood too late." Ethan looked out the hotel window. "I never wished bad things on you. I know, but I also never imagined you'd come back." Sophia reached into her purse and pulled out an old photograph. It showed the two of them standing beside Ethan's tiny furniture workshop years earlier. Both of them were smiling. "I've carried this picture every single day. I kept hoping I'd find the courage to apologize." Ethan gently accepted the photo. For a brief moment, he smiled, not because the memories no longer hurt, but because they finally felt like memories instead of open wounds. Sophia looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I know I don't deserve another chance. I'm not here to ask you to marry me again. I'm only asking, can you forgive me?" Ethan remained silent for several seconds. Then he answered, "I forgave you years ago." Sophia looked up in surprise. "You did?" "I had to. Holding on to anger was only hurting me." She covered her face as tears rolled down her cheeks. "But forgiveness," Ethan continued, "doesn't always mean going back." Those words hit her harder than anything else. "I understand." "No," Ethan smiled gently. "I don't think you do." He pointed toward the ballroom where young entrepreneurs were still celebrating. 10 years ago, losing you felt like the end of my life, but looking back, it was the beginning of the person I was supposed to become." Sophia nodded quietly. "I almost destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. You made your choice, and I made mine." She looked at him one last time. "Are you happy?" Ethan thought for a moment. Yes, not because I'm wealthy, not because my company succeeded. I'm happy because I finally learned. My worth wasn't determined by someone else's decision. For the first time in years, Sophia smiled, a real smile. I'm glad, as she prepared to leave. Ethan stopped her. Sophia, she turned around. I hope you find peace, she whispered, and I hope you keep inspiring people. She walked out of the hotel this time, and neither of them looked back. Months later, Ethan established a foundation that helps small business owners recover after financial disasters, giving struggling entrepreneurs the same second chance he once needed. One afternoon, he received a handwritten letter. It was from Sophia. She thanked him for forgiving her and shared that she had gone back to college, earned a business certificate, and started volunteering at a non-profit that helped women rebuild their lives after abusive relationships. At the bottom of the letter, she wrote, "You taught me something I was too blind to see when we were married. A person's greatest wealth isn't money, it's character. Thank you for proving that." Even after everything I did, Ethan folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and quietly smiled. Some chapters of life are never meant to be